Good morning, welcome, and thank you for joining us today as 5 reasons why going electric will save you money. My name is Stephanie Price, and I'm the Senior Applications Engineer here at Promess Incorporated.
Hi, and thanks for joining us as well. I'm John Lytle. I'm also a Senior Application Engineer here with Promess. And for those of you that haven't listened to our webinars or don't know a whole lot about Promess, let me just step back a little bit and tell you a little bit, just real quickly, about kind of our technology and that type of thing. Promess supplies our customers with systems built around our electromechanical assembly press technology. That's something we pioneered about 3 decades ago. So kind of all this that we're going to talk about today is related to that technology. Every component that makes up that system is built with the industry's largest safety factor. And it's designed basically to provide reliable, robust operation. So kind of let's get started into this. We kind of broke this down into 5 sections, I guess, and let's get started with the first one.
Right, so control and precision, right? We have the ability to have precise control with the servo motor, which allows for repeatability, and then the built-in sensing, really a closed loop system that allows you to measure, press, measure.
Yeah, really the control and precision is a huge advantage when talking about electric presses. And how you kind of tie that back to saving money is that precision, repeatability, the control that you gain from all that allows you in your particular application or whatever you're assembling or pressing together in this case, gives you that precision to help make the exact same part, which ultimately the whole premise of that is it really just reduces scrap and creates better parts for you and your customer. So touching on the reduced scrap part, in a lot of instances, the press has the sophistication with the built-in sensing to be able to sense changes in the manufacturing process and then adapt and adjust to that. So even if you have different parts coming into the station or different tolerance parts coming into the station, a lot of times you can compensate for that and make a bad part a good part. And you can't really do that with lower level technology for pressing and things like that. So the control and precision is part of that, and like Stephanie alluded to, it's repeatable. So you can do that from part to part. Even if you have really tight control tolerances downstream, the precision you get is just going to be even that much better. So ultimately, in a nutshell, that basically reduces your scrap.
Right, I've talked to customers where we've actually reduced the scrap anywhere from 50 to 100% of what they currently were doing. So it's a huge benefit for them in that way. But also,
so kind of leaping off of that, smart technology in the control system helps with this also. So with Promess systems, basically we have a closed loop system. So that closed loop system also, what it does is allows you to quickly, easily, and simply adapt to manufacturing changes and things like that. So as your part changes throughout the life cycle of that product, the control, the closed loop feedback, the smart technology built into these systems allows you to adapt to changes you have in your environment or your parts and things like that. So kind of talking about that smart technology, closed loop control, and adapting to product and manufacturing changes is another advantage that makes it very easy and simply to utilize your system for different changes and things like that. So it's also very flexible, where it's not like think of it as a flexible system to allow you to change to different parts and things like that easily.
And the nice thing that goes along with that is the programmability that you have. Being the fact that it is a closed loop control, you have fewer components, which then allows for easy integration. Fewer components allows for less maintenance because you have less components to maintain, as well as the hidden costs that are in there when you have several different components for monitoring, for control. When you have fewer components, there's smaller need for a knowledge base for educating the people who are going to be doing your maintenance, training them. So
Yeah, so the nice thing about a complete system is really what you're getting at is that it is easy to integrate. So from the very beginning of a project, that translates into dollars saved because of the ease of integration. There's less components involved, and all those components are built in and part of a complete solution. So that complete solution makes it easier for people to maintain that throughout the life cycle of whatever's being assembled or whatever's being done there with the application. So the knowledge base, like you said, is doesn't have to be as vast. With the Promess system, the sensing, the control aspect of it, the software and the mechanics are all part of the same system. You're not building a science project, and generally a science project takes more effort, more knowledge, and in the long run, more money.
right. Also, the fact that you have fewer components and it has easy programmability, it allows you to have the same system to do either a small, an easier application or a more complex application using the same components.
Right, just having less components, exactly. If you compare it or contrast it to like a hydraulic system, you have a hydraulic circuit, you have a hydraulic pump running all the time, you have typically a messy environment with that also, which we can touch on a little bit later. But there's a lot more that goes into that. And then if you want any level of control with that, you have to add components in. So you have to integrate in a load cell, some way to measure position and things like that, have some type of data acquisition system. Then that whole simple hydraulic system becomes a very complex monster that becomes very difficult to deal with, costs money. Eventually you have downtime, people come and go that work on it, the expert's no longer there, that all costs money in the long run. And another beauty of the electric system is the programmability aspect of it. And that programmability aspect of it really makes it easy to program, complex processes and things like that. For the most part, well, like with our system, and I think a lot of these systems are like that out there, electric servo systems generally have some type of software that's just menu driven. So you're really just putting in values, you're putting in positional values, force values, and things like that. All the control and the level of complexity is already done, built in by the experts, and it makes it really easy to be able to maintain that throughout the life of the product.
It also makes it really easy just setup wise.
Right.
Mean, it's very quickly to put a few components in, turn it on, and start programming it, as opposed to having to figure out hydraulic flow, the valve settings. That's actually very time consuming.
So you go out on service quite a bit and do a lot of different applications. So like give an example of when you're out in the field and just take a basic bearing press type application. How quickly can you program that to do force control, monitor feedback, graphs and limits and all that type of stuff? How long does that typically take you to do?
It takes
Assuming the integrator has that all integrated and ready for you to start doing that.
no more than 30 minutes.
Right, exactly. So
And
literally you're entering in parameters and then think of the time savings, and we know time savings equates to cost savings. So just to kind of reiterate that, the ease of integration and programmability you get with the electric servo press and the control and precision like we talked about. So what are some other, we said 5 reasons, so
Right.
what's another one?
So we kind of already touched on when you have a hydraulic or a pneumatic, you have to have pumps, hoses, filters, valves, regulators. That all takes up floor space. When you're looking at a electric system, it's very compact. There's less components, as we've mentioned several times, so that takes up less floor space. And people don't think about the amount of money that is consumed by floor space.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the bigger thing when comparing to like hydraulics, for instance, is that big giant pump that typically they have. And the circuitry that goes along with that. With the servo press, obviously you're gonna have some type of electrical enclosure. Some of the newer systems with a lot of the newer smart technology that's out there, we've really reduced the size of our systems in smaller electrical enclosures that are, I hate to use this word because it's been used so much, but the plug and play aspect of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely size gets reduced, so you have more floor space. And the overall operating costs are way down with that, right?
Definitely, because of the fact that with a servo, you're only using energy when you're using the press, as opposed to a hydraulic where the pump is constantly running and you have to have the energy to run the pump. You don't need that energy when you're looking at a servo system.
Right. So only energy needed when it operates or when it's under load. For the most part, it sits idle. It's not using anything. One other aspect, and I don't know how you kind of equate this to money savings, but just the actual environment that it creates in the plant floor by having electric versus some of the older technology that utilizes hydraulics or pneumatics and things like that is really, it just makes for a more pleasant manufacturing environment. And what I mean by that is electric systems are much quieter than hydraulic systems. So your noise pollution is way down. A good example of this, and this is actually, it goes back a few years, but when I first started at Promess, I've been with Promess for about 20 years now, and within my first couple of years, I was out on the road doing a lot of application support and things like that. And we were at a customer in Wisconsin, I believe. It was an integrator, and they had two really big assembly lines in their facility that they're designing and building for an automotive company around here. Two competitors actually, and one used hydraulics. It had probably 10 or 15 hydraulic systems presses on that particular line. The other one had Promess electric presses on there, and when they ran both of those lines, you and I couldn't sit next to each other with that line, with the hydraulic line running and try to communicate. It was so noisy. And then with the electric line, we could have this conversation right now and easily understand what we were talking about. So there's also other aspects to that too, just make for a better environment and things like that.
There is a customer that I was just talking with recently who actually has to have hearing tests for their employees every few months just because of the amount of noise that was going on within their plant. And that was actually one of the reasons why they were looking at going to electric from their hydraulics. So it actually is a lot bigger issue than what people tend to think about.
When you really start to look at a lot of these different aspects, you can really see, it has a lot of cost advantages and overall advantages in general. So moving on, kind of the other aspect or another reason, I guess, is it's low maintenance. So we've kind of already discussed the fewer component side of it, but obviously there's less components involved.
Right, and really for the servo system, right, you need about 1 hour a year, not a month, not a week, but 1 hour a year to calibrate the load cell, grease the press, and that's about the amount of maintenance that you need for it. So definitely much less than trying to maintain hoses and valves and worry about hoses leaking. Because that becomes a safety issue, right? You have slip and fall issues. It's messy. It's dirty.
It goes back to that manufacturing environment. Anything to help reduce the hazards, whether that's noise, like we say, or just a messy environment, things like that, just helps the overall manufacturing environment. But from a low maintenance standpoint, yeah, it has fewer components. Promess systems are designed to run for a long time and not require a lot of maintenance. So as you said, really it's 1 year a year to calibrate and grease it. And greasing, it's basically, we have several grease points on there, and it's as simple as using it. You can manually grease it. It can be automated. It can be put, since it's electric, fully programmable. That can also be set up in time intervals. Other devices can tell us when to do that and things like that. So it can even be fully automated. So it can be out of sight, out of mind, and just run and produce parts, which is ultimately what it's designed to do.
Exactly. And I think that really leads into the robustness, which is one of the other reasons why.
So that's kind of our fifth reason. So we've broken this down, and if we kind of go back, we talked about control and precision. We talked about ease of integration and programmability. We talked about operating costs and floor space. We've talked about low maintenance and then the safety and the fewer components and things like that. And kind of the fifth reason is the robustness. And what that really means is that the presses, the electromechanical servo presses, are really robust pieces of equipment. They're designed, especially the Promess systems are designed with a 2.5 times safety factor in all of its components. So it's designed for the manufacturing environment. It's designed for production. It's designed to be operated 24/7 through the whole life of that project. But one thing that is kind of maybe a subset, I don't know if that's the right word off that, is what we're finding is we had to put together here at Promess a whole repurposing programs for customers, because what we're finding out is they're lasting so long that once the life of the product's done, 7-8 years of something, of some life cycle of something being pressed together, they're repurposing for that for a whole other brand new program. And what a lot of times we're finding out is that the presses aren't wore out at all. Maybe some of the technology is a little bit dated, so we can upgrade software and things like that. But that allows you to take something that's already been paid off, you've already got your return of investment on that, and repurpose it for another project that costs you absolutely nothing up front and still gives you that level of robustness and reliability.
That you've been experiencing for years, because we're talking a product life cycle, right? We're not talking.
So in some cases, like I said at the very beginning of this, the technology, the actual electromechanical servo press technology has been around for about 3 decades. We have presses currently running up to 25 years. They're on their 3rd life cycle of a product, with little to no maintenance to that. We may have upgraded a motor here and there, or upgraded the controller, but the physical electromechanical press is still operating. So that also leads into another part of this robustness, and that's little to no downtime. And I think anybody that's in the manufacturing world understands that whatever it is, it needs to run, it needs to produce parts with little to no downtime, because that's really where our customers make their money at. Things like that.
You really have to think about downtime and how much money does that cost you. If you have little to no downtime, then you're wasting little to no money for repairs, or again, maintenance. If you're maintaining something, a lot of times you have to take that station down in order to do the maintenance on it.
Right.
We mentioned that already. One thing that I like about the robustness and going back to the ease of integration with our systems is the fact that you can take the same system, use it in a development environment, figure out your whole entire process, and then you're able to repurpose that and use it on the floor. And then you don't have to have any more development time, because you're using the exact same components that you did when developing the process as you are manufacturing it. A lot of times they're different. What's used in development is different than what's used inside of the manufacturing environment. So then it takes additional time to refigure out things that were already discovered in the earlier phases of the product.
Right. Good point. So taking all these reasons we've discussed, it really comes down to the overall total cost of ownership.
Absolutely.
And this all ties together. When you kind of start to examine electric presses, electric press systems, you can start to see, really where the advantages come in, cost savings and things like that. Obviously, the upfront cost is generally more with some of the older technology out there. And then as you're evaluating these for your project or whatever, you got to take into consideration some of the other parts of the ownership part, the service and support. I know in all of our webinars, that becomes kind of one of the highlights that we talk about, but that's something here at Promess we really pride ourselves on. And that level of support, you get in an expert that knows exactly how the system works and is there for the long haul, not just at the very beginning of it. So there's a level of cost savings there that is not so tangible to see, but is invaluable when you need someone there to help with support, things like that. So.
Right. And going back to the ease of integration and the ease of programmability, because of that ease, the need for service and support is lower as well. So we're always there when you need us, absolutely, but because it's easy, it's not as needed.
Right. So that's what we had on 5 reasons why going electric saves you money in this month's webinar. If you guys have any questions or anything, let's hear them.
We have one question so far. How can I know if an electric system is right for me before I purchase?
That's a great question.
So what I would recommend is I would talk with whoever you're deciding you want to be that provider. At Promess here, we have a group of 12 or 15 application engineers that you can get a hold of at any time. And they'll more or less consult with you on your particular application and see if it's the right fit for really what you're after. So, we'll go through a lot of this stuff we talked about, kind of look at your parts and things like that and understand what you're trying to accomplish out of it. And then see what products we have that'll fit that.
You can actually come and visit us here at Promess with your parts, and we can actually work with you to help develop that process so that you can answer that question here in our facility.
Right, and if you don't understand things about your process as far as assembling them and things like that, we have our product development center that's free of charge. You can send us your parts. You can come in and visit, and we can work with you on that, give you a full report on how the parts went together, the forces it took, how well it went together, things like that, discussions we can have on that, and figure out what the right solution is for you guys.
Right.
So sometimes the servo press isn't the right solution, or some of our other products. We have the servo press that we've kind of talked a lot about today, but we also have torque products and a marry of those two, which is torque and presses, and then different variations of all that. So.
Our next question is, do you have any proof that electric costs less?
So what I would do, I don't have proof right here in front of me for that. I don't have equations or calculations figured out for that, but we have done a full analysis on that. And I'd be more than happy to give you the reports on what we've found. And it's generally comparing electric to hydraulics. And we have done reports in the past on that for sure. So I'd recommend calling Promess or emailing our support or sales email addresses, and we can get you that information for sure. Yep. Because there is cost savings there.
Okay, our next question is, going to electric presses from hydraulics is a big cost jump. What are the best arguments to convince my management this is the way to go?
That is a great question. First and foremost, right, we covered 5, but I would talk with your management team and really find out what their long-term goals are. Because while it seems like a really big cost jump up front, everything we talked about is going to save you money over the total cost of that ownership. You're going to have more precision over your more precision and repeatability during your process. It's going to be easier to get it up and running once you start it, and you'll have to take up less floor space. Like all the topics that we just touched upon. And we're more than happy to work with you when you're talking with your management in order to make that case.
A lot of times what I'll do is ask the question back, and I'll get the question and ask with the question. But if there's an actual problem, what are the problems you're encountering now with how you're doing your process? And a lot of times the electric servo press solves those problems. Mm-hmm. So it's really understanding your application and understanding the problems you have, because if you're coming to us for possibly a different solution and price is your main concern, sometimes it's hard to justify that. But as we start to talk and discuss this, a lot of times what we discover is there's actual issues going on. You have product recalls, you have too much scrap, you have these types of issues that are costing you money. And that goes back to what we're talking about here today, which is how do you reduce some of your scrap? Control and precision might be that answer. Identifying some of the processes with the sensing built into it downstream that are happening allows you to fix things down there. What generally happens after we get over that upfront cost hurdle is that people start discovering all these different things that they never learned or understood about with their process or their particular parts. And now once they have that information available to them, now they can really tune in their products to exactly what their customer needs and their wants are. A lot of these other things are the added bonus part of that, the operating costs, the floor space and things like that. But really, it comes down to the precision and control that you gain comparing it to older technology like hydraulics, pneumatics, and things like that, or even science projects for that matter. We're the experts here at Promess. Everything we do every single day is designed to be based around that electromechanical press technology and torque technology.
Mhm.
So we will find a solution and solve the problems. And that's really how I approach that. So it really comes down to, what problems do you have and does this fit that? Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there aren't any problems, and then maybe it's not the right fit for you, and maybe hydraulics is the right fit. So
I think you touched on a key point, though. So many of our customers, when we're working with them, don't know as much about their process as they think they do. And once they start seeing all the sensing and the data that we're able to provide to them, they learn so much about their process, and they find issues that they didn't realize that they were having and needed to be solved.
right, exactly.
Our final question is, can your system support different parts with the same press, or do I have to buy multiple presses?
That's a great question.
So you can support multiple different products with the same press. That is one of the nice things about having the programmability within our system, is that you can set up different part programs for each one of those different products. And the press itself is very I just lost the
Yeah,
word I
we're-
was looking
we're-
for, but it's just very easy to use, and it covers a wide range. I don't want to use the word generic, but that's
Yeah, really what it comes down to is the controller aspect of it. So the brains of the whole system gives you kind of that you can have a low mix, high volume manufacturing environment you can use it for, or high mix, low volume, either way you want to look at that. That programmability does that for you. So really, it allows you to, let's take an example where I was just working on something with a customer of ours, and they build gasoline engines. And as these gasoline engines come down the line, they have all kinds of variations of them. In fact, they have a very flexible line, so they can build up a 4-cylinder engine. They can switch it over to a 6-cylinder engine. It can have all these different variations to it. And the nice thing about the controls and the electric aspect of that is, with some simple commands and some program variation, it can automatically decide what's in that station and adjust the program for that. And so that's one way that it basically allows you to do not just the exact same part over and over. And it's really that. It's. I guess we kind of answered that question, but yes,
Yeah.
It has that capability to do that, and it's really just a matter of programming it.
Mhm.
To not try to overcomplicate that. You're programming towards whatever. If you have 5 or 6 different part models that you're wanting to deal with, then you would just program to that, and the smart technology built into it's going to recognize that and bring up the program that it needs to do.
Well, it's ironic, right? I was just at a customer's a few weeks ago, and they purchased our station for a fairly complex application that they needed to do. And one of the other engineers in a different part of the facility comes over and he's like, "Can I just use this to crimp a few things?"
So you made a quick little program so you could.
So they could just crimp something, right?
Right. Yeah. So that gives you. Yeah, it's really about flexibility at that point, and you have almost unlimited flexibility with that,
Mhm.
and also the repurposing aspect of it. When you're done with that particular product and it's expired, you can use it and reprogram it for the next product that comes along. So it's really that simple. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Look for our webinar next month, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks.